3 black SUVs rolled into my street one afternoon and parked right in front of my dirty little food stand. And by sunset, I was sitting in a private hospital with a billionaire calling me family. All of that because I kept feeding one hungry old widow that everyone else stepped over. If I told you that simple kindness could rip your life open and stitch it back together in a way you'd never imagine, would you believe me? My name is Amara, and this is not a movie. This is how my real life flipped from smoke and dust under a torn canopy to something I still don't fully understand. So grab a seat in your mind, come stand with me on that noisy Port Harcourt street. Smell the stew and charcoal, and you'll see exactly how a roadside food seller, a homeless widow, a missing husband, and a billionaire all ended up in the same story. Most days of my life back then looked the same. I'd wake up before the sky even thought about turning blue boil water in our tiny one-room apartment and start cooking jollof stew beans plantain, whatever I could stretch from the small money we had. My daughter Jessica would rub sleep from her eyes, pull on her uniform, and help me carry coolers and plastic chairs to the roadside. Our restaurant was nothing more than a wooden table, 2 big coolers, a metal charcoal stove, and an old canopy so torn that when the wind blew, it flapped like it wanted to fly away and leave us behind. We didn't have much, but that spot was our world. Mechanics from the next shop, bike riders market women, tired men in dirty overalls. They'd come sit on my plastic chairs, wipe sweat from their heads with the back of their hands, and shovel hot food into their mouths like it was the only good thing that had happened to them all day. Sometimes they paid. Sometimes they owed. Sometimes they disappeared and never came back. But the pot kept boiling because it had to. This was how I paid rent, how I tried to keep Jessica in school, how I kept us from sliding completely off the edge. And then there was Mama Hannah. If you've ever seen someone people treat like they aren't even human, you know the look. Clothes hanging off her like they were tired too. Scarf faded and frayed bare feet, dusty and cracked eyes holding a kind of old pain you don't get from one bad day. That was her. People used to cross the road when they saw her coming. Some kids would throw stones and run. Grown men would hiss at her, wave her away like a fly. But she'd shuffle over to my stand anyway, every day, sit on one of my plastic chairs like it was a throne she'd borrowed, and wait quietly. Hands folded, eyes fixed on the food. Some days she had a few crumpled notes. Most days she had nothing. On those days she'd say, "Amara, my daughter, I will pay you tomorrow," in this small, hopeful voice, even though we both knew her. Tomorrow never brought money. I always pretended not to notice. Mama, don't worry. I'd say, filling her plate anyway. The stew is already cooked. It won't refuse to enter your stomach. She'd eat slowly, savoring each spoon, like it was a miracle. And when she finished, she'd bless me with more words than food could buy. I didn't feed her because I thought it would change my life. I fed her because I knew what it felt like to have nothing, to be invisible. You know what I mean. Now here's the part where everything snaps. It was one of those hot, sticky afternoons when even the flies looked tired. The street was busy, but normal. Mechanics shouting over metal bike horns, blaring, children running, barefoot, smoke from my charcoal stove curling up into the air. Jessica was weaving between chairs with plates in her hands, moving like she'd been born in a restaurant instead of a one-room apartment. Mama Hannah was halfway through her usual plate of jollof and meat-eating, slow humming quietly to herself. Then we heard it. Not a siren. Not a normal car. A deep, heavy hum, like the sound of trouble wearing a suit. The kind of sound that doesn't belong in a poor street, with broken drains and patched roofs. People stopped mid-chew, mid-sentence, mid-laugh, and turned toward the road. 3 long black SUVs rolled in slow, their paint so shiny they looked like they were allergic to dust. They didn't hurry. They just glided, engines purring like they knew everyone was watching, and they liked it. Conversations died. Plastic chairs scraped the ground as people stood up. Someone whispered behind me, "Is it a politician?" "Police. Is someone in trouble?" Let me be honest, my first thought was God. I hope I didn't accidentally feed the wrong person, and now I'm in some kind of mess. The SUVs pulled up and parked right in front of my tiny stand. Right there between my broken canopy and the pothole that never dried. My heart started pounding so loud it drowned the sound of the stove. The first door opened, and a tall, dark-skinned man stepped out. He looked like money had personally chosen him as its best friend. Navy blue suit that fit like it had been painted on polished shoes that had never met mud wristwatch catching the sun like a small star. Behind him, 2 men in black suits stepped out too, eyes tracking the street, moving like bodyguards you see in movies. He didn't look around much. He didn't ask anyone anything. He walked straight toward me. Jessica froze beside me, clutching a plate. "Mommy," she whispered, "he's coming here." I wiped my hands on my apron, but the stew stains just spread like they wanted to embarrass me. My legs suddenly felt like they'd forgotten how to be legs. By the time he stopped in front of my table, I could feel every eye on the street pressing into my back. "Good afternoon," he said. Voice calm and deep, with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing you can walk into any room and people will move for you. Nothing came out of my mouth. I just nodded, probably looking like a fish pulled out of water. "Please," he continued. "Who is Amara, the owner of this food place? You know those moments that stretch out where a few seconds feel like a whole year." That's what happened. Somewhere behind me, a plate clattered to the ground and cracked. The canopy flapped overhead. People stared. Even the smoke seemed to pause in the air. I raised my hand slowly. I'm Amara. He let out a breath so heavy his shoulders dropped. His eyes went soft, and a shine appeared like he was holding tears in place by willpower alone. "Thank you," he said. And his voice shook just a little for taking in my mother and feeding her every day. At first, my brain just hit a wall. It didn't match anything I understood. Then it clicked, and people around us gasped like the wind had punched them. "Which mother?" someone whispered. "Whose mother?" another voice asked. I swallowed. "Your mother. Who is your mother?" Before he could answer, a voice behind me cracked like dry wood. "Please, who is your mother?" We all turned. It was Mama Hannah. Her spoon was frozen halfway to her mouth. Her hands were shaking so badly the plate almost slipped. Her eyes were wide, full of fear and hope, and something ancient I can't even name. Jessica dropped the rag she was holding. The man in the suit turned slowly like he knew what he was about to see, but he was still afraid to look. His eyes met hers, and everything stopped. He took one step toward her, then another, then right there in front of my little stand on that dusty Port Harcourt road. This man, who looked like he belonged in a boardroom, did something nobody expected. He went down on his knees. He knelt in the dust for the homeless widow everyone ignored. Tears rolled down his face, traced through his expensive composure, and he whispered, "I am not dead. I survived." Silence hit so hard, it was almost loud, then it shattered. Someone screamed. Another person started praying, words spilling out too fast. I heard Jesus at least 5 different ways. I grabbed the side of my table because my knees were threatening to give up on me. Hannah staggered backward, both hands clutching her chest. "You survived," she whispered, voice thin as paper. "My son, my Jerry." Her legs gave out just like that. Before anyone could move, she crumpled, but he lunged forward and caught her in his arms. "My mother," he sobbed, holding her like glass, My mother. Let me ask you something right here. If you were standing under that ragged canopy watching a billionaire kneel in the dust for a woman, people avoided like disease, what would you have thought? Miracle setup. Some kind of hidden camera show. Be honest with yourself. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Then, chaos. People rushed closer, crowding, shouting, crying. Jessica was clinging to my side, sobbing. I felt like my body was still there, but my mind had detached and was watching from somewhere above. "Please give her space," he said, voice shaking but still firm. "She needs air." I snapped out of it enough to run to my cooler, grab a cold bottle of water, and push my way through to him. My hands were shaking as I handed it over. He unscrewed it with fingers that didn't match his calm face and sprinkled water on her face. "Mama, please open your eyes," he begged. "It's me. I'm here. I'm your son." For a moment, nothing. No movement. No sound. Just all of us holding our breath. Then her eyelids fluttered. She gasped softly and blinked up at him. "Jerry," she whispered. "Yes, Mama," he choked out. "It's me. I'm here." She lifted a trembling hand to his cheek, touching him like he might disappear if she blinked too long. You're alive." He nodded, tears falling freely now. "I'm sorry it took me so long. I am so sorry." She grabbed his shirt and pulled him close, hugging him with a strength that came from somewhere beyond flesh. Even one of his guards looked away and cleared his throat, pretending not to wipe his eye. And me, I just stepped back, heart pounding, realizing something huge was happening. And somehow my little food stand was the stage. But it wasn't over. After the shock, after the first wave of cries, after a few shaky laughs, Hannah's body reminded us it was tired. Her chest heaved, her eyes rolled back, and she went limp again, collapsing harder than before. This time even the billionaire panicked. "Mama," he shouted, lifting her as if she weighed nothing. "Call the ambulance now," one of the guards spoke into a radio. Apparently, they'd already called medical backup the first time she fainted. And within minutes, the sound of a siren cut through the street. A white ambulance raced down the road, dust and noise trailing behind it like a cape. Paramedics jumped out, opened doors, rolled out a stretcher. "Make space, please," one yelled. People shuffled back, still crying, still muttering prayers. They checked her pulse, placed an oxygen mask, lifted her carefully. He flinched when her head tilted, as if someone had slapped him. "Careful, please," he said. Voice breaking, "She's my mother." "We'll take good care of her," Air One medic replied, professional but gentle. Jessica tugged my hand, eyes wide and wet. "Mommy, is she dying?" I swallowed hard. "No, baby. God will not allow it," I said. But if I'm being honest, my voice didn't even convince me. They started loading Hannah into the ambulance. The billionaire turned to us, to me and my daughter, with this mix of fear and gratitude that pinned me in place. "Please," he said, "come with us." I blinked. "Us, we're not family." He shook his head slowly. "You fed her. You sheltered her. You are family." Those words hit me right in the chest. I didn't even know what to say. Before I could argue, he held out his hand. "Get in," he said softly. "You're not staying behind." Next thing I knew, Jessica and I were inside one of those black SUVs following the ambulance, with the siren blaring, my whole street shrinking in the rearview mirror. Jessica sat pressed against me, her hand locked onto mine. "Mommy, I'm scared," she whispered. "Me too," I said, pulling her closer, "but we'll be okay." As we drove, people on the road stared, some stepping aside, some waving. Traffic officers saluted as the convoy passed. I stared out the window, still smelling stew on my clothes, watching the city move, like none of it knew my life had just split in two. We pulled up to a private hospital, the kind my feet had never stepped inside. Glass doors, polished floors, guards in crisp uniforms. This was not a place for canopy cooks and homeless widows. But there we were. The medics rushed Hannah inside. A doctor met them listening as they quickly listed her condition. Elderly woman fainted twice. Chest pain. Weak pulse. Emotional shock. They rolled her through double doors and disappeared, leaving us in the hallway with our fear. The billionaire, I didn't know his name was Jerry yet, just stood there staring at the closed doors, his chest rising and falling like breathing hurt. I moved closer and put my hand on his arm before my brain could talk me out of it. "She will be fine," I said softly. He turned to me, his eyes red and honest. "I'm scared," he admitted. "I just found her. I can't lose her again. She has a reason to stay now," I told him. "She won't leave." He held my gaze for a second like he was trying to borrow faith from me. Then he nodded. Time stretched, but eventually the doctor came back out, pulling off his gloves. "How is she?" he asked quickly. "She's stable," the doctor said. "We were able to bring her around, but she fainted from emotional shock. Her body has been under stress for too long. Hunger, exhaustion, trauma. She needs rest, food, and safety." Rest, food, safety. 3 things my little stand had tried to give her in the smallest way. "They're guaranteed now," he said. "She will have everything she needs." The doctor smiled. "She kept calling your name when she woke up," he added. His eyes shined all over again. The doctor said only one person could see her at first. He looked at me, then at Jessica, then back at me again. "You should go," he told me. I shook my head. "No, I can't. You're her son, you should see her first." He stepped closer, voice low, but firm. "She would want the person who fed her, who sheltered her, who made her smile again. She would want you." Jessica squeezed my hand. "Go, Mommy. Mama Hannah will be happy." So I went. The room was quiet except for the beep of a machine and the hum of air conditioning I wasn't used to. Hannah lay on the bed, oxygen tubes in her nose, eyes half closed. But when she saw me, they brightened. "My daughter," she whispered. I rushed to her side and took her hand. "Mama, you scared us," I said, forcing a smile as tears tickled my eyes. She squeezed my fingers weakly. "I saw my son," she whispered. Jerry, I thought I was dreaming." "No dream, Mama," I said. "He's here. He's alive." Tears slid down her cheeks. "Amara, I have nothing. I am nobody. Why did God send you to me?" I wiped her tears with my fingers. "Because everyone deserves love," I said, "even when the world forgets about them." "You gave me food," she said, voice breaking. "You gave me a bed. You gave me a family without knowing who I was." I nodded. "Kindness doesn't ask for details," I told her. Her grip tightened stronger than before. "I will never forget you. Never." Later, Jerry came into the room, knelt by her bed again, and spoke softly. "Mama, when you get strong, I'll take you home. But for now, rest. We have many lost years to talk about." Then he looked at me, and his face changed, like he had put away something emotional and picked up something serious. "Tomorrow," he said gently, "I will come back with a gift. For everything you did. Something big. Something life-changing." I shook my head quickly. "You don't owe me anything, Tom." "Anything," I said. He smiled deep and grateful. "I am a billionaire, Amara," he replied. "When people save my family, I don't walk away quietly." Yeah, he actually said that, out loud in that hospital room. And yeah, my brain just froze for a second. That night, back in our one-room apartment, I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of our bed, while Jessica lay beside me in her school uniform, already ironed for the next day, because she didn't want to be late. She stared up at the ceiling, clearly just as awake as I was. "Mommy," she whispered. "Do you think Mama Hannah will be okay?" "Yes," I said, brushing her hair back. "The doctor said she's stable. She will be fine." She was quiet for a moment. "But what about what Jerry said?" she asked. "He said he'd bring a gift tomorrow. Something big." I sighed. "I don't know what he meant, Jessica. But whatever he brings, we accept it with humility. Kindness should not expect a reward. Jessica nodded and shifted closer. "Mommy, I'm proud of you," she said simply. Those words hit harder than any gift. I pulled her into a hug. "I'm proud of you too, my daughter." But long after she fell asleep, my eyes stayed open. What could a billionaire give a woman like me? A bag of money, school fees, a roof that didn't leak, a real restaurant. Or was he just talking in the heat of the moment? My thoughts slipped to my husband, Johnson. He used to bring me white roses on our anniversary, saying they reminded him of my kindness, my way of taking care of people. Once, over a plate of rice in our cramped room, he looked at me and said, "One day I will build you a small restaurant, Amara. No more fighting with rain and sun under that canopy. Just wait." Then 3 years ago, he left one morning to look for work and never came back. No call, no message, no body. People told me to move on. They said face reality. He left. Men do that. But my heart refused to believe that the man who held my hand through poverty would just disappear for fun. So that night, as the city noise faded, I lay there wondering if maybe, just maybe, some strange door in heaven had opened over my life. Or maybe I was just setting myself up for disappointment. If it were you, after everything you've been through, would you let yourself hope? Or would you shut your heart and say, "I'll believe it when I see it"? The next morning, the whole street woke up early. By the time Jessica and I pushed our cooler to our usual spot, people were already gathered. Some wanted food, but most wanted gist. "Amara, is it true the billionaire is your customer? Is he coming today? What did he promise you?" I gave them small smiles. "Let's cook first. We will all see." Under the canopy, I lit the charcoal stove, stirred the stew, arranged plates. But my heart was not calm. My hands were working, my face was calm, but inside me was a storm. Jessica pulled on my wrapper. "Mommy, I'm scared and excited," at the same time she whispered. "You and me both," I said quietly. Then we heard it. That deep hum again rolling in from the junction. People froze. Heads turned like someone pressed the same button on all of us. "He's back," someone shouted. The billionaire has come again. The same 3 black SUVs drifted into view, moving like they weren't in a rush because they owned time. They parked right in front of my stand again. The doors opened. Jerry stepped out, but this time in a white senator outfit that looked softer, almost glowing in the sun. His guards followed. The street went quiet except for 1 or 2 phones trying to sneak a video. He walked toward me, steady, serious. "How is Mama Hannah?" I asked, heart in my throat. "She's doing well," he said, with a gentle smile. "She's asking for you." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Thank God. Then he turned slightly. "Bring it," he told one of his guards. The guard motioned toward the SUV behind us. Someone stepped out holding a thick brown envelope, not the kind you use for rubbish errands, the kind that smells like money and big decisions. Jerry took it, then turned back to me. The entire community leaned in, like the whole street had become one person. And in front of everybody, he dropped down on one knee again. I almost jumped out of my skin. "Please stand up," I blurted out. Hands flying. "What are you doing?" Jessica had both hands over her mouth. "Mommy, what is happening?" she whispered through her fingers. Jerry raised a hand slightly, like he was calming the crowd. "Amara," he said, his voice strong, but full of emotion, "you changed my mother's life. And when you changed her life, you saved mine." Tears already pricked my eyes. "No," I said, shaking my head. "I didn't do anything special." "You fed her when you could barely feed yourself," he continued. "You sheltered her when you had only one room. You protected her dignity when the world threw her away." Then he opened the envelope and pulled out a large document. Even from a distance, I could see drawings, lines, bold letters at the top. "Kindness Restaurant, Port Harcourt Branch." My breath left my body like someone punched it out. Jessica grabbed my wrapper fingers, digging into the fabric. "Mommy, is this real?" she whispered. Jerry got back to his feet and held the paper up. "I have already paid for the land," he announced to the crowd. "Construction begins this week. The building will be the biggest restaurant in Port Harcourt, and it will belong to you. The woman whose kindness kept my mother alive when the world forgot her." The street exploded. People screamed, some shouted praise, some just stood there with their mouths open. One woman sat down hard on the ground. A grown man started crying loudly. "Otis alive!" Jessica burst into tears. "Mommy, we are going to have a restaurant," she sobbed. I didn't trust my legs anymore. I stumbled into a plastic chair, shaking my head. No. Jerry. "This is too much," I whispered. He stepped closer. "There is more," he said. "More." My brain said, "No thank you, we're full." But my mouth just moved silently. "This," he said, pulling out another set of papers, "is for Jessica." She stiffened. "Me?" she asked, pointing at herself like there was another Jessica somewhere. Jerry nodded. "Your daughter wants to become a medical doctor," he said. "I will sponsor her education from now until she becomes one. Tuition, books, accommodation, everything she needs." The gasps this time were almost louder than before. "School fees till doctor," someone shouted. "That is millions, God of wonders," another cried. Jessica covered her face with her hands and sobbed into them. I just sat there, shaking my head, tears pouring silently. "Jerry," I managed, "we don't deserve all this kindness." He crouched in front of me, looking straight into my eyes. "Yes, you do," he said softly. "People who give without expecting deserve blessings without limits." Pattern interrupt for you. At that moment, my life stopped being just about survival and became something else, and I hadn't signed any paperwork for that transformation. He went on to explain that engineers were already ready, that construction would be fast, that the restaurant would be named Kindness in honor of what started all this. The whole street turned into a celebration. People danced, clapped, shouted prayers. Some filmed, some posed near his SUV as if they owned it. Then he looked back at me. "My mother wants to see you again," he said. "Come with me to the hospital." So once again, I found myself inside his SUV, air conditioning, blowing against stew-scented clothes and frayed nerves. This time, there was something else waiting on the seat beside me. A bouquet of white roses, fresh, bright, wrapped in gold paper. My chest tightened immediately. White roses were Johnson's thing. Every anniversary, every special promise, he'd show up with white roses. The day he told me, "One day I will build you a restaurant," he placed white roses on our table and said they reminded him of my heart. I stared at the flowers, and it felt like a hand reached into my chest and squeezed. "Oh, those," Jerry said, noticing my eyes. "They're for my mother. She likes white flowers." "They're beautiful," I said quietly. "Yes," he nodded, pure simple honest. The convoy pulled away from the street. People waved and shouted blessings. Jessica stood there by the stand, hands pressed on her chest, tears in her eyes, looking like she was watching a dream drive away. Inside the SUV, silence stretched. "Are you afraid?" Jerry asked softly after a while. "I'm overwhelmed," I admitted. "Everything is happening too fast." "I know," he said, "but kindness doesn't ask for permission before bringing blessings. And blessings don't always come slowly." I looked down at my hands. The little scars from hot oil, the permanent stain of stew that never truly washed away. "Your mother has become family to us?" I murmured. "We didn't do anything special. We just did what humans should do." He turned his head, watching me with this sad little smile. "Most humans don't do what you did," he said. "Most people stepped over her, ignored her, pushed her away. Some threw stones. But you gave her food. You gave her shelter. You gave her dignity." I swallowed. "She reminded me of me," I said. I know what it feels like to be alone." He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Did your husband leave you alone too?" The question hit me like a slap. "No," I said sharply at first, then softer. "My husband Johnson disappeared 3 years ago. He left one morning to find work and never came home. Not a call, not a message, nothing. Everyone says I should move on and accept that he abandoned us, but he was a good man. He would never walk away on purpose." "I'm sorry," Jerry said. "Jessica still believes he'll come back," I admitted. "Some days I pretend I believe it too, so I don't crush her." We pulled up at the hospital again. He stepped out first, then helped me out, and we walked down the hallway where nurses were whispering and stealing glances. He didn't care. His eyes were set on his mother's door. He stopped with his hand on the handle and looked at me. "Amara, there's something important you need to know," he said. My heart skipped. "What is it?" I asked. He opened the door, but didn't answer right away. Inside, Mama Hannah was sitting up, cheeks still pale, but eyes bright. She smiled when she saw us. "My daughter," she said to me, stretching out her hand. "Why are you always good to me? Who are you truly?" I laughed softly. "I'm just a cook under a canopy, Mama. Nothing special." "No," she replied, voice firm, despite her weakness. "You are special. More than you know." She turned to Jerry. "Did you tell her?" "Not yet," he said. "Tell me what I asked now, genuinely afraid." Just then the door burst open, and Jessica rushed in, breathing hard. "Mommy, I followed the car," she said, half proud, half scared. I didn't want to stay alone. I shook my head, but my heart was secretly glad she was there. "You are too stubborn," I muttered. Hugging her quickly, Jerry chuckled. "She definitely belongs in this story," he said. Then his face grew serious again. "Amara," he began, "what I'm about to tell you might sound unbelievable." My stomach dropped. "Tell me," I whispered. He took a breath. "I know who you are," I frowned. "What do you mean I'm Amara?" "I sell food. Yesterday after we left, he said I asked my private investigators to look into you. I needed to be sure before coming back this morning." My heart started racing. "Investigators, and why?" "Because you didn't just save my mother's life," he said. "You saved someone connected to you in a way you don't yet understand." Connected how I demanded, squeezing Jessica's hand. "Please stop scaring me." He leaned forward slightly. "Your husband," he said. "Johnson." My breath caught. "What about my husband?" I asked. Voice barely there. "Amara," he said slowly. "He didn't run away. He didn't abandon you. Something happened." "What happened?" I pressed, every part of me shaking. "You remember when I told you about the attack that took my father?" he asked. 20 years ago, armed men stopped us on the road. They shot my father. They shot me. They left us on the road, thinking we were dead. A good Samaritan found me and took me to a hospital. I survived, but I lost my memory. I didn't know my name, my family, my home. A man who volunteered at the hospital adopted me, gave me a new name, a new life. For years, I didn't know where I came from. I nodded slowly, remembering his earlier words. Well, he continued, those men, that group. They didn't stop. They continued their operations for years, targeting vulnerable men traveling alone. Men looking for workmen who couldn't fight back. Amara, last night my investigators confirmed something. The room went quiet. Even the machines in the corner seemed to pull back. "Your husband Johnson," he said quietly, "was taken by the same people who took me and my father." For a moment my mind refused to process it. Jessica gasped, clinging to me. "We don't know if he survived," Jerry went on gently. "We don't know where he is yet. But we know this. He didn't leave you. He didn't choose to disappear." My legs felt weak. I pressed a shaking hand to my chest. No, this can't be. All this time. Jessica turned her face up to me, eyes swimming. "Mommy, Daddy didn't leave us." I couldn't answer. I just broke. Tears poured out, not the quiet kind, the ugly shaking kind that comes from somewhere deep in your bones. Jerry put a hand on my shoulder. "Amara, I promise you something today," he said, his voice steady. "I swear it. I will find him. Even if it takes everything I have, I will find Johnson. Alive or gone, I will bring you answers." Pattern. Interrupt moment. I thought that was the end of the shocks, right? Big restaurant scholarship, kidnapped husband promises from a billionaire. That should have been enough plot for one life. I was wrong. Stick around because what happened next will blow your mind. While construction on Kindness Restaurant started, something else started too. The hunt for my husband. The land Jerry had bought became the biggest show in our neighborhood. Every day, neighbors gathered to watch trucks rolling in cement mixers, spinning workers shouting instructions. Steel bars rose from the ground like a forest of metal walls, climbed higher every week. The sign, Kindness Restaurant, appeared on a temporary board, and people would stand in front of it, taking pictures saying, "This came from that small canopy down the road." News spread across the city. Billionaire builds restaurant for roadside food seller. Homeless widow reunited with son after 20. Kindness Restaurant construction shakes Port Harcourt. People started looking at me differently. Some with pride, some with jealousy, some with that calculating look, like they were doing spiritual math, trying to figure out what prayer I prayed that they didn't. But while the walls were going up, my heart was somewhere else. Jerry's investigators were digging through old police files, talking to security agencies, tracing the network of kidnappers that had taken him, and later Johnson. I'd get small updates. "We found a lead. We're checking a location. We're looking into a raid that happened weeks ago." Hope became this painful thing, sharp and sweet at the same time. Then one morning, Jerry came to our door early without the SUVs, just him and one guard. His face was serious, but his eyes were different. "Amara," he said, "come with me to the hospital. There is something you need to see." My heart started pounding. "Is it about Mama Hannah?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Partly," he said. "Just come." Jessica insisted on coming too, of course. She grabbed my hand and refused to let go. We walked down the hospital hallway together, the same white tiles, the same smell. When we reached Hannah's door, Jerry stopped. "Are you ready?" he asked. "No," I answered honestly, "but I'll go in anyway." "That's courage," he said quietly. He opened the door. Inside, Mama Hannah sat up in bed, looking brighter than I'd ever seen her. But she wasn't alone. A man stood beside her bed, tall, thinner than he probably used to be, shoulders weighed down by something heavy, eyes soft and tired and familiar in a way that hit me like lightning. He turned slowly when we entered. For a second, the room spun. Jessica's grip on my hand tightened. "Mommy," she whispered. "Voice cracking, is that?" Jerry stepped aside gently. "Amara," he said, "meet him." The man took a step toward me. "Amara," he whispered, and the way he said my name broke me open completely. It was his voice, bruised older, but his. I pressed my hand against my chest, my breath coming in short bursts. No, this can't be real. It's me," he said, tears flooding his eyes. "It's Johnson." And that was it. The dam broke. I stumbled forward, and he reached out, then hesitated, like he wasn't sure he had the right to touch me. "Amara, I'm so sorry," he said. "I never left you. They took me. They beat me. They kept me hidden. I tried to come home." I fell into his arms, and he held me like a man who had spent years hugging air. Jessica flew into us, and wrapped herself around both of us. Sobbing, "Daddy, Daddy, you're alive." He kissed her head over and over, crying, "My little doctor." He whispered, "I never stopped praying for you." Later, he told us everything. A police raid, a hidden compound, men kept like animals, some lost in their minds, some too weak to walk. Johnson among them, thinner scarred, but alive. When they asked if he remembered anything, he remembered one thing clearly: my name. Jerry had moved quietly in the background, using his connections to match that name with the woman he'd just built a restaurant for. When it all lined up, they brought Johnson to the hospital at dawn. When I turned to Jerry and asked, "You did this," he just nodded. "You saved my mother," he said softly. "I saved your family. Do you think that's fair? That kindness came back to me like that, or do you think this is one of those one-in-a-million stories, and the rest of the time, good people just suffer in silence? I genuinely want to know what you think." Over time, life settled into a new shape. Kindness. Restaurant finished standing tall and bright at the junction where kids used to play in the dust. Glass doors, bright lights, polished tables, uniformed staff. A logo on the front showed two hands holding a bowl of food. People traveled from across the city just to eat there and take pictures under the sign. The grand opening was huge. The street was full of chairs and people and music. Reporters showed up with microphones asking questions like, "How did this all happen? And what does kindness mean to you?" Jerry stood in the center like a proud big brother. Jessica, now on her way to university, stood beside him in neat clothes. Johnson, a little stronger every day, held her hand. I stood at the front, palms sweating, heart racing. At the center of it all, wearing a beautiful lace gown and holding scissors, was the same woman who once begged for leftovers under my canopy, Mama Hannah. Mama. Jerry took the mic. "Today we opened the biggest restaurant in Port Harcourt," he said. "A restaurant built to honor a woman's kindness, the kindness that saved my mother. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the woman who inspired all of this, Madam Hannah." The crowd roared. Hannah turned to me, tears already on her cheeks. "My daughter, come," she said. I walked forward, legs shaking. Hannah took my hand and placed it over hers on the scissors. "Today," she whispered, "I return to you what you gave me, a chance to live." Together, both of us crying, we cut the ribbon. Fireworks shot into the sky. People screamed. Cameras flashed. And then in front of everyone, she put the keys in my hand. "I don't deserve this," I cried. "You deserve more than the world can give," she said, holding my shoulders. That moment. I still replay it sometimes when the world feels heavy. Years passed. Kindness. Restaurant grew. We opened new branches. I hired staff who used to be jobless, hired single mothers, hired people no one else wanted to give a chance. Newspapers called us the heart of Port Harcourt, and the restaurant built by kindness. Money came in, more than I ever imagined. 70 million naira profit every year at one point. Sometimes I'd sit in my office staring at the figures, shaking my head, and whispering, "How did a roadside food seller end up here?" And the answer would always come back the same in my heart: kindness. As Jerry promised, Jessica's journey to becoming a doctor was fully covered. Tuition books, accommodation, even her stethoscope. Johnson did everything he could to support her emotionally. He went to therapy, worked through nightmares, learned to sit in an office and help with numbers. Slowly, he rebuilt himself. Hannah became the proudest grandmother on earth. Every weekend she'd visit Jessica at school, carrying food in containers, telling everyone around, "My granddaughter will be a doctor." 5 years later, we sat in an auditorium and heard Dr. Jessica Johnson. I screamed myself hoarse. Johnson clapped until his hands turned red. Hannah waved her wrapper above her head like a victory flag. Jerry stood at the back, clapping softly, with that small smile he always gave when his heart was full. After that, things changed again in a quieter way. Jessica started working at a respected private hospital. She was good at what she did. Smart, focused, gentle with patients. And Jerry, well, he was always there. Calling to check if she'd eaten. Dropping by the restaurant. Suggesting opportunities. Sometimes just listening. Late-night calls turned into occasional dinners. Dinners turned into long walks. Long walks turned into something both of them felt, but were too careful to name. Until one quiet evening, Jerry asked Jessica to meet him at the garden section of one of our own restaurants. He was waiting under little string lights wearing a simple shirt and trousers. But somehow he looked more nervous than I'd ever seen him. And I'd seen him kneel in dust and cry. When she arrived in a simple white dress and soft curls, he smiled like the sun had just stopped to watch her. "Jessica," he said, "you walked into my life because of kindness. You and your mother fed my mother when she had nothing. And since then, every day you've reminded me what it means to truly care." Her heart was pounding. She told me later she could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Then he went down on one knee. "Will you marry me?" he asked. "Will you let kindness build another home this time with us?" Jessica burst into tears, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes," she said, her voice breaking. "Yes, Jerry." He slipped the ring on her finger, and fireworks lit the sky again. This time, just for them. Their wedding felt like the universe wrapping up one story and opening another. I walked her down the aisle with Hannah. We were both crying so loudly that people kept laughing and wiping their own tears at the same time. Johnson stood straight in his suit, eyes full and shining like a man who had seen hell and was now standing in heaven's doorway. Jerry waited at the altar, not as the unreachable billionaire anymore, but as the man who had become part of our family long before that day. When they were pronounced husband and wife, the hall erupted. Claps, cheers, music, everything. My body decided to embarrass me, and I fainted for 2 seconds. Yeah, that happened. They still tease me about it. Hannah danced like she was 25 again. Johnson cried into his handkerchief, not even pretending otherwise. Jessica and Jerry held each other like they knew this wasn't luck. It was something deeper. Now today, as I'm telling you this, there's the laughter of twin girls in the background sometimes. Mimi and Mirabelle. Jessica holds one, Jerry holds the other. Hannah sits nearby, clapping and singing old songs. Johnson leans on the doorway, older lined, but present. Fully there. Sometimes I sit with one of the babies in my arms and whisper, "It was kindness that brought all this." And here's where I want to leave you with something to chew on, the same way people once sat under my canopy and chewed jollof. Do you think kindness always comes back like this? Do you think people like me always get their happy ending if they just keep doing good? Or do you think I'm just one of the lucky stories? And out there are thousands of Amaras and Hannahs who never get a billionaire, never get a restaurant, never get their family back, because where I started was a world where poor people are invisible, where a homeless widow could sleep under a bridge, and nobody cared, where men could disappear looking for work, and people would just shrug and say, "He left." Where wealth and survival live on opposite sides of the city, like they're allergic to each other. What does it say about us that it took a billionaire to make people suddenly see Hannah as a human being worth crying over, worth putting on the news? What does it say that my kindness was invisible until money stood beside it and shouted, "If it were you, would you still feed someone like Hannah every day? If nothing changed for years, if no one saw you, if no billionaire ever showed up? Or would you say, I have my own problems, and look away? I'm not here to tell you a fairy tale where every act of kindness gets a restaurant and a love story at the end. Life is harsher than that. I know it, you know it. But I am here to tell you this: kindness is never truly wasted. It may not come back in the form of money or fame or fireworks, but it does something to your soul, to the world around you, in ways you might not see until years later, or not at all. So now I want to hear from you. Do you think what happened to me was destiny, or just a rare accident of life connecting at the right moment? Do you believe that helping people can change your life? Or do you think that's just something people like to say, to make pain easier to swallow? Have you ever helped someone, and then years later, something came back to you in a way that shocked you? Or maybe you helped, and nothing ever came back, and you're still wondering if it was worth it? Tell me in the comments. Argue with me. Agree with me. Share your stories, the good, the painful, the unfair. And if this story made you feel something, anger, hope, disbelief, anything, don't just click away. Hit like so more people hear it. Share it with someone who might be one step away from giving up on doing good. And if you want more real stories like this, go ahead and subscribe, because at the end of the day, rich or poor, lost or found, one thing my life has taught me is this: kindness always comes home. Maybe very late, maybe in a form you don't expect, maybe louder than you're ready for, but it never gets completely lost.